For the first lesson of Math 1351, we're going to start with determining some basic probabilities, talking about what a sample space is, what an outcome is, what an event is, etc. And teaching probability, I think, can be a lot of fun because there's a lot of really great hands-on activities, experiments that you can do in the classroom that can make teaching probability very engaging. And always, if you're struggling to come up with any of those, we have the internet to help us. There's a lot of really good things on Teacher Pay Teacher, on Pinterest. There's AI that we can use to help us. But when you're teaching probability, I think it's something that you should always look forward to. Probability is very heavily taught in 7th grade. And so before we get started, I'm just going to very quickly go into Lead Forward, go into the 7th grade standards and kind of point out where those standards are. Give me just a second to switch over to that. Okay, so when you're teaching 7th grade, you see a really large chunk of standards here at the bottom of the screen here over teaching probability. And I just kind of want to point out some vocabulary you're going to see here. We see the words experimental and theoretical probabilities, sample spaces, tree diagrams, and I encourage you to go back and look through all of these. Complement, all of these are words that are going to come up in this lesson and the next lesson and the following lesson, all as we go through this first unit. And so kind of just knowing the vocabulary, what the standards look like, can kind of be helpful, especially if this is something that you're thinking about teaching in the future. So going back to the notes, we're going to start off with just some basic definitions. So an experiment is any activity that we do whose results can be observed and recorded. For example, drawing a card from a standard deck, rolling a dice, spinning a spinner, drawing a ball out of a box. Say you have a candy jar, drawing candy out of a candy jar. Any experiment that you can do. And this is where you can make teaching probability really fun in your classroom. You can get decks of cards, you can get dice, you can get spinners. And if those are not things you can have, you can just create a bowl of candy that has multiple different types of candy. You can get a box and put different color balls inside. There's lots of different experiments that you can do. Now, an outcome is each possible result of an experiment. And so let's say we have a box that has 2 red, 3 green, and 2 blue balls. We could reach in and we could draw a red ball. Well, that would be an outcome. It's a possible result of whatever experiment that we're doing. So if we are drawing from a deck of cards, drawing a 2 of clubs is a possible outcome. If we're rolling a dice, rolling a 3 is a possible outcome. A sample space is when we ask our students to write a set in set notation of all the possible outcomes of an experiment. And so the one that I've given you here is the sample space for a deck of cards. It has 52 outcomes in it because it's everything that you could possibly draw if you were going to draw a card from a standard deck of cards. If I ask you to list the sample space for rolling a dice, it would be S equals bracket 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So sample spaces is when you just make a list of all the possible outcomes. And that's so important to do when you're teaching probability because a lot of times students cannot figure out the probabilities because they can't see all of the outcomes at one time. And so if you make a sample space, it's much easier to determine what the probabilities are because you're staring at all of the possible outcomes. An event is when we start getting more specific. So it's a subset of the sample space. And so the sample space has all of the possible outcomes, where an event, we make a set of something particular that we want, like drawing an ace. Well, an ace could be the ace of hearts, the ace of diamonds, the ace of clubs, or the ace of spades. It's a specific event. And so it would be getting down to, okay, we want to find the probability of getting an ace. How many aces are there? Aces is a subset of the sample space, and so it's 4 of these outcomes, letting me know that the probability of getting an ace would be 4 cards out of the 52 total cards. So an event is just a subset of the sample space where you go to the sample space, but you're denoting that you're looking for something particular. Like an event could also be the face cards, where you made a set of all of the face cards, which is a subset of the actual sample space. Another example of, like say we had the sample space of rolling a dice, which would have 1 through 6 in it. And then I had an event of maybe rolling an odd number. That would be, 1, 3, and 5, but that wouldn't be an event because it's a subset of the sample space. So how we're going to start this lesson out as far as working examples is we're just going to talk about the deck of cards, because a lot of people are not very familiar with cards. They don't play cards as much anymore. And so that's something I like to take some time to do is let's just look at the deck of cards and get familiar with it before we actually start working probability questions. So here I have a visual of the deck of cards, and if you don't play cards much, this might be something for you good for you to print out, or maybe go buy a deck of cards. They're very cheap. But you can see here all 52 cards in the deck. Half of them are black, half of them are red. They are split into 4 suits. So the top line is clubs, below that is spades, below that is hearts, below that is diamonds. Each suit has 13 cards in it, because if you think about 52 split into 4 suits, that's 13 cards. Ace, 2 through 10, and then the jack, the king, and the queen makes 13 in each suit. If we think about face cards, there's 12 face cards, all the jacks, queens, and kings. And like I said, half the cards are red, half the cards are black. There's 4 of each kind, like 4 aces, 4 twos, 4 threes, etc. But if you're not familiar with the deck of cards, this is something that I would keep handy, print it off, buy you a deck of cards, etc. Because we're going to be answering questions about cards all throughout the semester. So the first question we have here is how many cards are in the deck? And I have already said that multiple times. There are 52 cards in the deck. My pen is not working, so give me just a second to get that fixed. Okay, so like I said, there's 52 total cards in the deck. Second question, how many suits are in the deck? Name them. What color is each suit? So we've already talked about this. There are 4 suits in the deck. Their names are spades, clubs, hearts, and diamonds. Let me go back to this visual here. We have 4 suits, the top one being clubs, then I have spades, then I have hearts, then I have diamonds. And I don't know if I listed them in that order specifically, but you can see that the clubs and the spades are black and the hearts and the diamonds are red. So these 2 suits are black and these 2 suits are red. How many cards are in each suit? Name them. So going back here, we've already talked about if you have 52 cards split into 4 suits, that leaves you with 13 cards in each suit, starting with ace, going all the way through kings. And so there are 13 cards in each set, and in each suit, and ace, then we have a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, followed by a jack, a queen, and a king. How many face cards are in the deck? We're going to name them, and we've already talked about those. The face cards are the jacks, the kings, and the queens of each suit. And so there's 12 of those. There's 3 in each suit times 4 suits. That's 12 cards. So we have the jack of spades. We have the queen of spades. We have the king of spades. We also have the jack of clubs. We have the queen of clubs. We have the king of clubs. And then we have the jack of diamonds, the queen of diamonds, the king of diamonds. And then finally, the jack of hearts, the queen of hearts, and the king of hearts. And so that is all 12 cards in the deck that have faces on them. So that's just getting us familiar with the deck of cards. When we go on to the next page of the notes, we're going to actually practice writing some sample spaces. And sample spaces are written as sets, and so we want to make sure that we use the proper set notation, and then we're going to talk about how many outcomes are in each sample space. So if I'm going to toss a coin once, the sample space would be, oh, I could get a heads or I could get a tails. And so that's two outcomes in that sample space. The cardinal number which is the number of outcomes in the set, is 2. And so that's 2 sample spaces. Now, if I toss a coin twice, this is where sometimes I need some help. And I'll draw myself a little tree diagram. So on toss 1, I could get heads or I could get tails. On toss 2, I could get heads or I could get tails, or heads or tails. And what this just helps you do is it helps you make sure you don't miss anything in the sample space. So if you follow the tree diagram, I could get heads, 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 tails, tails, heads, tails, tails, and it just makes sure that you don't miss any possibilities. And so the sample space for tossing a coin twice is I could get heads, 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 tails, tails, heads, or finally tails, tails. And this has 4 outcomes in this sample space. Now, when we roll a dice, we've already talked about this, the sample space is where you list all of the possible outcomes. You could get a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6 on a standard dice. And so that sample space has 6 outcomes in it.